Voice of Indonesia.
VOI listener, welcome back to VOI Talk with the Voice of Indonesia. Right now, VOI listener, in this modern era, there are lots of ways for us to communicate with each other through music, through art, and maybe through the art of writing, such as poetry. And VOI listener, right now, we are having a topic in VOI Talk today through the diplomacy of poetry. And of course, I'm not alone. Right now, I'm with two special guests. There is Tesaannisa, S.S M.Hum, the Assistant Professor of Faculty of Languages and Arts, Jakarta State University, and also Aminnur Rahman, poet-writer from Bangladesh. Good evening, and how are you?
Good evening, Rai.
Hello,
Good.
Mr. Aminnur and Ma'am Tessa. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Rai, and also Mr. Aminnur?
Yes. Okay. So,
Hello.
okay.
Yeah, hello everyone. Greetings from Bangladesh. Hi, hello to everyone.
Oh, very nice to meet you, sir.
Okay. So, right now, I'm going to ask first about can you tell us the development of poetry today compares to other literary works, especially in the college institution in Indonesia? For Tessa first.
Okay, thank you, Rai. So as we know that poetry today has evolved in fascinating ways, and unlike novels or plays, which rely on extended storytelling, but poetry distills emotions and ideas into a powerful and concise expressions by the choice of words, the figurative language, the imagery, and for the regarding the development of the poetry today. We can relate it with the media social improvement, the digital media. Poetry has more accessible through platforms like Instagram or TikTok, maybe, or Facebook and other media. And for me, it's quite a very big step to promote the diplomacy and the peace to other nations. Yeah, for me, maybe that's the development of poetry nowadays.
And for Aminur, what do you think that diplomacy is being used as poetry is used for diplomacy in the Bangladesh area?
Now, first thing is, what is going on in the poetry in the global area, in fact. Because I'm just doing poetry and the poetry networking for many, many years. And particularly if you just see the poetry development, because of you asked the first question, what is the development of the poetry, particularly in compared to other things like short stories, novel, and other things. But the poetry, what I believe now, and my observation also, poetry now belongs to very, very strong words. Poetry belongs to Asia, and poetry belongs to Latin America. So this is very interesting because of even some extent it is also in Arab countries also it's going, and some extent it is in Africa also, but not that way. So these are the areas we are proud as Asian. Because I was in Minangkabau, the literary festival last 2 years, and I've seen that lot of poets, lot of writers around. So, and even in our country, even in the Southeast Asia, and other countries, not even Southeast, other countries also. So poetry is actually a vibrant, virgin land for writers in this area. And if you just go to the Latin America, the same thing actually. Each and every countries, of course, they are speaking in Spanish. And if you just see the Spanish language over there, it is not the mainland Spain, not the Europe, not the America. It is the Latin America. So poetry is growing in these two sectors, particularly Asia and the Latin America. And if you compare to other things, recent time actually that the literature particularly, it is not like every time it is happening. It's not sometimes, it is developing, it is spread it is giving real edge to the audience, to the readers. But nowadays, not only the poetry, literature is little taking a backstage, and we are not seeing much of very important poets. Very important means very renowned poets and names. Few names are there, of course. Few Arabs' names are very important nowadays, also in Latin America, in Asia also, but not that extent. Though he got Nobel Prize from for the not for poetry but other language. So it is a little slow, but always poetry is always a little slow moving, and you will not get the thousand audience in for the poetry, but only few countries in Latin America may possible, but it is always a less, and I think now it's little slow going on, but even though there are lot of hope for poetry.
Okay, so from what you said before, that poetry is being used mostly in Latin America, but poetry can be an understanding and appreciation of other cultures as well, because the way of the words being written and the way of the emotion is being captivated to the audience by the writers is also really being used for diplomacy, so that other people can feel the way they feel when the writers write their poets. And what do you think about that? Maybe the both of you can
exactly. For diplomacy, actually, it's not the poetry, but the what you can say, it is a literature. So poetry only as a poet, what can do a poet can do, but at one poet can do the best thing is to write a beautiful poem for the readers. So that means we can't stop war, we can't do anything, but we can write a beautiful poem, beautiful lines. And you always know that there's a Coleridge says the poetry is the best word in best order. That is, if you just compare to the prose. So that means this best order in the best form. So this is the poetry, and obviously the diplomatic purpose, it is not a direct any diplomatic that manner we can do for the by the poetry, but by doing writing poetry and doing a lot of poetry activities. Say in Sumatra, that is a Minangkabau Poetry Fest, Minangkabau Literacy, Minangkabau International Literacy Festival. That is a very wonderful festival, actually, doing in Indonesia. So this kind of festival, and other countries also doing in Bangladesh, in India. Because on the other day I was in India, so for ISISR, that is a wonderful, actually. This is not that it will not help you to write poetry, but of course. Directly, there is no action, but obviously, indirectly, there is a huge implications, direct effect on the people's mind. So people can motivate, people can know this diplomacy is little tactical, by writing the poetry, and by the government, also society, how they are projecting to the poetry or writing or literature to the society. So society can move around. If you go to Medellin, so you'll see the thousand people sitting down and listening poetry. So it is also possible. So that means that diplomacy obviously is there, but indirectly, very strong.
Okay, for Tessa, maybe I would like ask you some question. As a English literature teacher for the State University of Jakarta, usually this future of literature from the students that comes to the universities makes actually learning on how to write and understand the poets of not just the poets, but the literary works of others that created before. And what do you think about the use of literature, especially for the future generation of learners?
Okay. For me, the using of poetry as diplomacy tools for the future. Talk about Latin America. I think in Indonesia, we have the same taste of how to express our emotion through poetry. For example, such as W.S. Rendra, we have W.S. Rendra here. Maybe I want to read the one of his poem just a little bit, entitled "The Sajak Seonggok Jagung" or "A Heap of Corn." So, seonggok jagung di kamar dan seorang pemuda yang kurang sekolahan. Memandang jagung itu, ia melihat dirinya terlunta-lunta. A heap of corn in a room, and a young man lacking education stares at the corn, seeing himself abandoned. So this is not simply you see the corn, no, but it reflects the social issues that critiques about the capital economy or the class struggle in Indonesia. So this typical poetry is also seen in Latin America, and it is very quite different with Western individualistic expressions. And for the future generation, as we talk about the diplomacy tools, for me in this era 4.0 era, we talk about industry, we talk about the market, but somehow we forget about how to be a human, how to be a human being. So for me, poetry has these tools. It has this power to unite the nation, because the word or the diction that used in the poetry from maybe different countries can express the same meaning. For example, from Mr. Aminnur poetry, I have read your poetry, one of your poetry entitled "Love 5." My heart's sky contains you. Nilima, a star beyond the galaxy, a lotus in the river, emerging as a new woman. It's really remind me to Sapardi Djoko Damono. Sapardi Djoko Damono, one of our former writer here, and I can sense that this is the same feeling that when you express your word by using nature, that's the same point that used by Sapardi. So for me, when we read a poetry, when maybe the young generation read a poetry in Bangladesh, maybe, or Indonesia, in America, etc., they can feel the feeling and the struggle of other nations. So maybe that's very helpful for students to understand the intercultural and understand other nations' struggles. Yeah, for me, yeah, it works that way.
You feel the same way, Aminnur?
Yeah, of course. Because of what I just said in the beginning, because of poetry, there's a not direct effect. But we have to encourage people, young generation, what Tessa said. We have to encourage the young generation to read more poetry. So it will be not a direct, actually, that not direct effect. But indirectly, it's a tremendous, because of when you like poetry or literature, I just want to make it a big horizon. If it is in literature even, so it will solve a lot of your problems. It can be calmed down. It can be also agitated, of course, because of when we are agitated and you are seeing something and read something, you are really revolted, yourself inside you. So that is also possible, but in a sense, because of you are saying the peace. So peaceful mind is very important. And peaceful mind is possible only to read a beautiful lines. If you write, say, Tessa read one of my poems, a love poem. One love poems is making that people's make you someone, so to cool down, to take you a different world. So this is the actual diplomacy. And how the society or how the government, how your bigger aspect, how the country to countries act on that. So many countries is non-bothered for that thing. So we see that your radio station is working for the poetry. So it is also possible, because of another day one question was there. So whether it is attracted by this subject is attracted by the by the young generation. But trust, I'm telling you, the readers, particularly for the poetry readers, always a small numbers. But I don't believe the younger generation is not reading. I've seen many small children They're reading poetry also, they're reading literature, they have interest. It is a inner, not, you can't consider the 100% young generation will go for the literature, go for the poetry. But if we can increase and we can supply the good poetry, good books to them, so this is one of the diplomacy, how we can encourage indirectly to the young generations to be more active in the mind, not as a physically, but also in mind activity is very important. So because the maximum time people are not thinking that way. So when you just think and you can change yourself, that is the best way to do. So yeah, I'm sure this is the way actually we should focus more to in the future.
Okay, maybe for the final question, I would like to ask for both of you. If poetry is one of the solutions that makes peace and raise tolerance, and what strategies can be used, maybe from a poet's perspective and maybe from a lecturer's perspective, is there maybe a collaboration that can make diplomacy between countries and maybe the world in that matter? Maybe Tessa can answer first.
Okay. For me, as a lecturer of English literature, I would like to give an awareness to my students that literature has special or unique power to enhance your humanity, because the poetry itself, it transcends language barriers and speaks to the heart, because it has a way to softening messages. Maybe you want a diplomacy that you want to ask someone, you have to understand our culture. But then when you use poetry, you can use diction or imagery, or we call that the familiarization, and also for grounding, the technique that we use in formalism to understand the literariness. And the literariness itself is the power that attached to poetry, because the language of poetry and literature in general, it's quite different from our ordinary discourse. So the poetry making the message more personal and relatable. For me as a lecturer, I will gain their awareness to write the poetry and also read the poetry, and then try to use your critical thinking, that there is something that wants to deliver by the poetry to you, and you have to think more critically and use some critical theory, maybe, that, because I'm a teacher or a lecturer, so it is something technical, but it is very important to take out the phenomenon that actually happen in that specific era and other nations, so we can understand other nation and can understand other struggles. Yeah, maybe that's from me.
Okay, Aminnur?
Yeah, yeah. It's because we asked the tolerance and other things. Yeah, and the intercultural exchange. So what we can do actually, because of Tessa is telling about her experience in this for the students, but I have experience for the global area, because I'm traveling a lot, and I attended many festivals in all over the world. So, and if we can increase this number of things, means this activity, say, I already mentioned the Minangkabau International Minangkabau Literacy Festival. So it is last 3 years, it is going on. So, and a lot of international recognized poets are coming, writers are coming. So, you can't, because of they can spread their knowledge to you, as well as you can spread your knowledge to them. So it will be priceless. So it will carry over effect up there. So it will be going to all the countries. And when you go to other countries, you can also exchange your things, your thought. So this is more, we should be more focused on this transformation. So if it is more transformation, means more collaboration. More collaboration means it will be, society will be more, educated and more vibrant. And if it is a more vibrant, that lot of things will be solved actually. So we are facing lot of issues, that unrestness and the intolerance, particularly intolerance for the politicians and others also. It is too much in the country to countries and others. So if we can write better poetry, so it will spread it all over the world. And I'm sure that day will come, so we can do 100% for more activity for the poetry and the literature in future.
Okay, thank you so much, Aminnur and Tessa, for accompanying me in this special interview about diplomacy with poetry. And so, for a listener, as we've explored today, poetry is more than just words of pages. It's a bridge between cultures and a tool, of course, for diplomacy. And it means of fostering understanding across borders and maybe the world. And thank you so much, for a listener, for accompanying me in this special interview with Aminnur Rahman and Tesaannisa. And see you in another episode of VOI Talk in Voice of Indonesia.
Voice of Indonesia.